Coming on next, listen as Chris Klieman will tell us why this might be his most talented team.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on our YouTube channel, all over social media, or our morning newsletter, KCSN Daily, dedicated to your Kansas City Chiefs. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Three Mall Pod. We're in Arlington, Texas for Big 12 Media Days at AT&T Stadium, also known as Jerry World. Derek and I caught up with several players and guests today, players from Kansas State, players from around the Big 12, Gene Taylor, et cetera. You'll hear more on our podcast coming up over the next couple of weeks from everyone we've spoken to. Today on the podcast, you're actually going to hear from head Kansas State football coach Chris Klieman. We caught up with him for several minutes, and we're going to play some audio from that recording of our interview with him. And we'll also talk about some of the things that we heard about Kansas State football from the players, from athletic director Gene Taylor, et cetera, on the K-State football program going into what should be an exciting 2022 season. Now, you may notice we're missing our main man, John Kurtz. He was not able to make the trip down to Arlington. He's our lead point guard on all of this. This is new for me. I'm trying to help host this thing and move it along, but we miss John. But again, this is why we call it Three Mall. We have backups, and you and me are able to make it work down here in Arlington, DY.
Speak for yourself. I do not miss John.
Well, I miss John. I was waking up in the middle of the night thinking about ad reads and other things as we go through this. So before we get started and really dive into the content, guys, I want to give a shout out, as always, to all of you that listen every week. We appreciate you. Remember to like or subscribe our video on YouTube, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts if you're listening. We appreciate your support. That helps us. And we're also grateful for the support of our sponsor, Holiday Distillery. Whether it's 360 vodka, whether it's the bourbon you want, Holiday Distillery has you covered. 360 vodka, Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. If bourbon is more your style, it is for DY and I. I think we're more bourbon guys on occasion. We enjoy that, but no matter what it is you're celebrating, Kansas State having an exciting football season this year. If you need to make a drink like I do on occasion after I get my 3 kids to bed, Holiday Distillery has you covered. We appreciate their support as always here on the Three Mall Pod. Before we pitch the Chris Klieman audio, DY, I think we heard some interesting things today from the players and the coaching staff from Chris Klieman about the offensive line, some shuffling that may go on up front, and impact freshmen, how this freshman class may be one of the better freshman classes that we've seen in a long time. Curious what maybe stood out to you and what you heard today from Chris Klieman and some of the players.
Well, the most exciting thing is probably with the freshmen. I think everyone, the fans, they always soak up with that kind of information, whether it's I think you'll hear about Tobias and Sami at some point at one of our podcasts, already being a 22-mile-an-hour guy, Jake Clifton being close. Just those kinds of freshmen that are making an impact. We've heard great things about the offensive line and the freshman offensive line as well. Jacob Parrish is another corner freshman that's really making an impact as well, too. Will they be guys that can play, soon? That'll probably be decided in fall camp, I would think. But, man, the players really glowed about that group. More about how they conduct themselves. Obviously, they're all good players, or they wouldn't be coming to Kansas State or, a Power 5 program and with a scholarship offer in tow. But just the way that they conducted themselves, I think usually one of the bigger hurdles for freshmen is, not knowing how to carry yourselves, not knowing what hard work totally is yet, how to conduct your business, how to manage all the work that's on top of being a student athlete at a Power 5 institution. That's just challenging. I mean, that's no easy task. I think what's blown away a lot of the players and coaches thus far is this group seems, capable of handling those things with relative ease, at least thus far. We'll see what happens when the bullets start flying, fall camp starts happening. But, that's one thing that jumps off the page, maybe the freedom to play Cooper Beebe inside a little bit more. I think you alluded to that. I think that's something I like to hear because, the only thing that suggests is that they're starting to believe in their offensive tackles more, whether that be, obviously you're going to have Christian Duffy on the right side, whether that be KT Leviston on the left side or Andrew Linegang. So those are the things that jump off the page to me. And that's on top of, we discussed and had conversations with Gene Taylor and Brett Yormark as well.
Yeah. That caught my ear moving Cooper Beebe. Obviously a preseason first-team All-Big 12 pick, a stud left tackle, but I think we've all agreed for a while that he'd be even more better suited on the interior, and that's where his career in the NFL is headed. But he's one of those versatile offensive linemen that can be your swing lineman in the NFL, that can play guard and tackle. So the versatility is huge, but the fact that they feel comfortable about sliding him down to the guard position, where I think he could probably be an All-American type guard and be dominant. And Kansas State has slid him down on occasion in the middle of games at the guard position, but that speaks volumes about what they think also about Andrew Linegang, a talented redshirt freshman who I think maybe appeared in one game last year, but they were able to get him over some other big-time offers. Stanford had recruited him as well, and he's one of those versatile guys like Beebe, kind of a similar mold, but a little taller, maybe even a little more prototypical offensive tackle that can play guard and tackle. I mean, what are your thoughts and impressions on that?
Yeah, Linegang's more – Cooper Beebe was an excellent left tackle. He got first team All-Big 12 last year as a left tackle, so he's nothing to sneeze over, even if he's not, what you would expect a left tackle to look like. But Andrew Linegang, don't get me wrong, optimally he's probably a guard as well, just like Cooper Beebe, but he's more equipped to play tackle than even Cooper. So it's not much of a stretch. It's an easier way to get your best five on the field. Another way to get your best five on the field is Hadley Panzer probably playing a little bit of center and a little bit of guard. I think you'll see that. You might see two different centers, it sounds like, with him and Hayden Gillum. I doubt they rotate centers too deep into the season. That might be exploratory, early in the season. And then something that gets overlooked, maybe not locally, because I think we've had a pretty good pulse on it, but just the return of Taylor Portier. Connor Riley doesn't praise a lot of dudes, at least not until they actually deserve it, right?
Yeah.
Like Cooper Beebe is the only one that gets the honors from Connor Riley. Everyone else, he wants to see it until he starts giving you your pat on the back. Well, he gave Taylor Portier the pat on the back already in the spring, and he's barely played football. He said he was an All-Big 12 caliber player.
It's crazy to think about Taylor Portier, because here's a guy that this is his fourth year now in the program, but we've really only seen him a handful of games because he redshirted his freshman year. He was in Chris Klieman's first recruiting class, a late ad after Klieman became the head coach. Then, he didn't play much his freshman year in 2019. 2020, he gets inserted into the starting lineup. I think maybe game 8 or game 9 was maybe the Baylor game in Waco when he became the starting right guard. And you look at the running game, and they actually, whether it's coincident or not, the running game took off at that point. They averaged over 200 yards a game, over 5 yards per carry the next 3 games where Taylor Portier was playing. And so here's a guy that hasn't played a ton of football, but they absolutely love. He would have started last year, but he tore his ACL in fall camp before the season. They've got him back now. And the benefit is he tore his ACL in fall camp, not late in the season. So he's had plenty of time to recover. They're feeling good about where he's at. And he's a guy that can blow guys off the ball. He can maul people. And I think they're really excited, obviously, to have him. That's a huge addition back to the lineup, just because you lose a guy like Josh Rivas on the interior. So that can't be understated.
And then on the defense, you get Khalid Duke back, which is probably a similar boost, you would think, but it seems like a little bit of reservation yet on him. He's returning from injury. He had was it the Nevada game?
Yep.
The Nevada game where he got hit pretty good and lost the remainder of his season. Sounds like he's maybe recovered from that, but then had another, I think it might have been a hamstring hiccup, Chris Klieman said, in one of his various media sessions on Wednesday. So he's someone that's still working his way back, I think. So yeah. I'm not ready to jump on the Khalid Duke bandwagon just yet. In the same way that I am Taylor Portier, he still is going to be a key part of this defense in one shape or another. I wonder if he isn't just a pass rush specialist at some point.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Khalid Duke, we spoke to Chris Klieman earlier today in Arlington, actually, and we touched on Khalid Duke. And who better to hear from the man himself, head football coach Chris Klieman, that we'll now turn it over to. All right, we're pleased to be joined with Kansas State football coach Chris Klieman. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
What's the day been like so far? It's football's right around the corner. It's talking season. I feel it's right around the corner for you now.
It is. It's busy, but it's always fun to be back here in AT&T, and it kind of ramps up the start of football season. And it's a little different this year because we were scouting the whole place out because we were playing here in about 6 weeks last year when we were here. So, but just great to be back and talking ball.
Is it cool to kind of turn your attention from all the ancillary stuff like NIL and realignment and actually just focus on your team from now on?
Yeah, but it still gets brought up in every conversation. There we go. It just got brought up, right?
Yeah.
Name, image, and likeness, and realignment, and yeah. I mean, once we get to August, I'm very hopeful that we'll just work on your football team for 2022. But it's a part of the landscape. It's a part of what college athletics is right now.
1 through 85. Is this your best roster, I can say?
Right now, it is. It is going into fall camp, but you knock on wood that you don't lose a Taylor Poitier or Khalid Duke and some of the guys that we've lost. I mean, that's the thing is you gotta get the guys ready to play. You gotta have physical practices, but you've got to be smart so that you can try to get 1 through 85 to get on the field come September 1st. And that's the goal every year, is to try to stay healthy.
Coach, when I look at the roster, I see 15-plus guys that are in their 5th or 6th year of playing college football. I see 20-plus that are in their 4th, and then that's not even counting Deuce, Felix, all those guys. From a leadership perspective, how valuable is it to have so many grown men that have been around it this long?
Yeah, it helps you immensely. It's a youth game right now with us. Everybody talks about recruiting and bringing in this group and that group. But it's still, the core of your team has to be older. The core of your team has to be 4 and 5 year guys. And now for the next couple of years, we're still going to deal with the 6 year guys. And we're fortunate we get Eli is one that jumps out at me. It's a 6 year guy. But that's what it takes to win, is having, at a high level in Power 5, is having a bunch of older guys.
When it comes to Khalid Duke, Will Holmes, and Sincere Mason, are you still hopeful they're going to be ready for prime time when the ball kicks off in September?
Yeah, I really am. That Will's probably further ahead than the other two, but the other two I can see doing conditioning stuff every day. I don't know if they're going to be able to practice every day as we get into fall camp. We've got to be smart because both those guys, Nick Allen's another one. Nick's a really good football player for us that injured it against Texas. So, some of those injuries last quite a while, so we've got to do a great job of managing their workload.
You've kind of pinpointed the same linebacker position as one of your anchors in the 3-3-5 scheme.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable with what you have here with Gavin Forshaw and Sean Robinson?
Yeah, and we also have Crew Jackson in that group. We have Khalid in that group because he's going to kind of be a hybrid and do both. We have the ability to go small in there like we did last year with Reggie, but it's the area that is probably the least experienced that we have to make sure that spend some good time with in fall camp. We're probably going to play a number of guys at that spot over those first 3 non-conference games, just like we are at safety, until we can find the right mix.
You've now got an off-season under your belt with the 3-3-5 defense, a full season of experience. What adjustments do you see maybe needing to be made? I'm not asking you to give away the secrets, but
just being more multiple out of it. We rushed 3 the majority of the time last year, and mainly because that was our base, that was our bread and butter, and our guys were comfortable in getting good at it. But we have to evolve. We didn't have a chance really last year because we were mixing still the 4-down stuff with the 3-down throughout the spring and throughout fall camp. This year, we've had a lot more professional development time where our coaches have been out talking to other teams that run this. And so slowly starting to put those things in. Once again, we would have put them in all during the spring, but we didn't have any of our defensive linemen the entire spring. So this is another big fall for us with this new defense to try to integrate more ideas.
Pass rush, obviously such a big deal in football nowadays, and you've got some of the best pass rushers in this league, and Felix and Nate Matlack, a guy that really came on, and Khalid Duke, if he gets healthy. How valuable is that in today's age?
Well, it helps an inexperienced secondary, with our safeties being inexperienced. We have to be able to rush the passer. And you're right, you throw Khalid in there. Nate's really unheralded. Nate's a really, really good pass rusher, and he's heavier and heavier. He's He's 245 plus now. Kid came in at like 207, 209 to see what he's become. And then Felix, obviously. And Felix is going to draw probably a lot of double teams. So whether it's Eli, whether it's one of those defensive ends, they're going to have some open one-on-ones.
Is Nate a guy that you could see making a jump similar to what Felix did last year?
Absolutely has the ability to. Without a doubt, has the ability to.
I know safety is your question mark, and something I've kind of identified too. You have 3 new starters, really.
Yep.
Do you feel any comfortable about it when you were in the spring?
Josh Hayes, we brought in as a corner, and we moved to safety. And he's getting more and more comfortable. He's a football player, and he's played a lot of ball, and we had him at North Dakota State, so we know what he's capable of, just learning a new spot. We're going to play a lot of guys there. We've done that in the past. You know that we've played a number of players there, but we're going to rotate a lot of guys early because we have a lot of guys that just entering our program this summer. Drake Cheatham's a name that comes to mind, and Jordan Wright, and we had those with Sincere Mason who missed spring. TJ, we found him a more comfortable spot. He's playing more of what J-Mac played for us at the strong safety spot. Kobe Savage, we think, is a really good player. We just got to get these guys game experience and reps, and so we have a number of bodies now. We just got to find ways to get them reps.
First year, in a while at least, that you haven't added a transfer tight end. Is that because you felt better about this group moving forward, or was that kind of just the landscape being what it was?
A little bit of both. I think Sammy Wheeler has really blossomed into an exceptional tight end, and he's another 5th or 6th year guy. You tell me, is he 5 or 6? But he's been here a long time. And transitioning from quarterback, he's 3 years now as a tight end, and we think when healthy, he's one of the best receivers. Ben Sennett, when healthy, is one of our best blocking tight ends. Will Swanson, people don't know much about. Will Swanson's going to have a big role for us. We're excited about the guys we have at tight end, and we feel like we have enough bodies there. We didn't need to have one.
The last couple of years, you've been around 61, 62 plays per game. Is there a number with this more up-tempo look that you'd like to get to?
I would like to think we could be low to mid-70s for on average. Some games we may snap it 65 times, and some games we may get up closer to 80. It all depends. How's the game going? If we're up 2 scores in the second half, we're probably not going to go very fast because we want to make sure to win the football game too. But I think the ability for us to change our tempos will still come out of a huddle at times. But we have to be able to go no huddle set too.
One more for me, Coach. I know you got to run. When you look at the up-tempo offense, I know obviously you're playing to your skill talent, right? But what is that also from a recruiting perspective? Did it play into it that kids want to play in a little bit more faster tempo, and maybe that would draw some better skill position guys in the recruiting?
It might have played into it, but it's what I saw of us needing to adjust to, and that's why I went to Colin and said, Colin, give me your plan, and let's try to implement it, and excited for him because we need to be able to, we've got a lot of skilled kids that can do something with the ball in their hands. More plays gives more opportunities for Malik, for Phil, for Cade, and so on and so forth.
All right. Well, thanks, Coach. We appreciate your time. That's Kansas State coach Chris Klieman.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
We appreciate the time of Chris Klieman on the 3 Mile podcast and all the time of K-State's SIDs, Ryan Lackey and Kenny Lanou, to get us all the guys that we heard from today. We could not do it without them. Before we dive in more into what we heard from Chris Klieman and what we heard from the players today and expand upon that, I do want to also mention our new sponsor, DY Homefield Apparel. We're excited to welcome them into the fold as a new sponsor for our program on the 3 Mile Pod. Homefield Apparel, if you haven't heard of them, premium collegiate apparel brand out of Indianapolis. Incredibly comfortable gear. We can speak to this ourselves because we have had the opportunity to see some of the designs from Homefield Apparel, and mine actually arrived in the mail just before I left for Arlington, DY, and it's incredibly comfortable apparel. I don't know if yours arrived yet, but that's a tough break for you. So I did not actually pack it down here in Arlington, but we appreciate the support of Homefield Apparel. They're kicking off their big new Saturday season 4, where they launch a new school off their site every Saturday for 14 weeks straight. I believe Kansas State was the last school to come into the mix from the original Big 8. But Kansas State fans, Homefield announced this on Sunday, I believe July 11th. They announced that Kansas State, it may have been July 10th, Kansas State was going to be one of their new schools that they were promoting the gear. I think it's 15 shirts between T-shirts, hoodies, crew necks. the reaction from Kansas State fans when they saw Homefield Apparel was going to be, creating gear for Kansas State was through the roof.
It was robust.
Yeah.
It was robust.
Yeah. So we appreciate the support of Homefield. If you want, you can go to Homefield Apparel's website and you can actually score 15% off your first purchase with Homefield with the code 3MAW, 3MAW at checkout at homefieldapparel.com. Again, we appreciate the support from Homefield. We could not do it without them, and I'm excited to wear my gear and sport it around this upcoming football season. I'm sure many of you will be the same. DY, we talked about Khalid Duke a little bit before we broke to the Chris Klieman audio, and I thought maybe we expand on that. It did seem like they were a little more reserved. He tore, I believe, every ligament in his knee. Definitely tore a couple. It was a severe injury against Nevada last year. And Khalid Duke was a guy that really looked like he was coming on. He had sacks in his first couple games to start last year. And then in the Nevada game, first half, it obviously looked severe, and it was. Now he's coming back from injury. The recovery process has taken a little bit of time. What are your thoughts on how they utilize him, especially in this defense? Because he, like you said earlier, he may just become a pass rush specialist because they've kind of moved that Sam role, Sam linebacker position, where they started with a guy like Duke to start the year to a more of a Reggie Stubblefield type role, which will probably be a Sean Robinson type, Gavin Forcia, others at that position this year. So does Duke just become like a third down jet package guy with Nate Matlack and Felix and Udika Uzama? What are your thoughts?
At least in the beginning, I tend to think so. Because like I said, I think he's still slowly working his way back. I don't know that he's all the way there. I think Chris Klieman told me in a separate, media session on Wednesday that he had Will Honus ahead of both Khalid Duke and Sincere Mason in terms of recovery. So I think those are two guys they're still just waiting on. And in terms, but he also said, and everyone just heard it too, Khalid Duke's probably going to be in that same role. And obviously he's probably going to be used maybe differently than Reggie Stubblefield. I wouldn't imagine that those roles are identical, even though they're playing the same spot on the field. So, Khalid Duke is such a versatile athlete. He can do a myriad of things on the defensive end, and that's why he's so valuable to Kansas State. But what he does best is rush the quarterback. And whether that's as a hybrid or just as a defensive end, I think that's what he should be doing. The thing is, in that certain spot, they're pretty loaded.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't talked about him yet. Everyone knows about Felix and Udika Uzama. But not everyone knows about Nate Matlack. Maybe a lot of Kansas State fans do because they're pretty excited about him. But I think Jalen Pickleball could start on the outside. We'll see. It would not surprise me if your two starting defensive ends are Nate Matlack and Felix Udika Uzama. And now maybe we'll see what happens when the ball kicks off in September, and it could be Jalen Pickle. But Nate Matlack's going to play a lot of football.
Well, that was a common theme, and we brought it up a lot intentionally today to the players we spoke to and to Chris Klieman about Nate Matlack and the potential, and you'll hear it more in upcoming podcasts from other players talking about what they think of Nate Matlack. But here's a guy that he's 6'6", maybe 6'7", came in at maybe around 205, 210 pounds, and now he's close to 250. He's put on a lot of muscle, and I thought he showed a lot of flashes, especially as the year went on last year. And kind of one of the themes was today, can he make that jump to a Felix and Udika Uzama level this season? And, he's another Kansas City area type kid from Olathe. I think the staff, the players are certainly very excited about that. They're excited in general about the pass rush that they're going to be able to create on the defense side of the football. And, one of the things we also heard was concerns around the safety position, and we heard Chris Klieman also address that. But one of the things that can help alleviate those concerns, right, is having a great pass rush, having two really good veteran corners that are returning in Julius Brents and Echo Boydo. But that pass rush, that's going to be key in taking some pressure off the safeties. But I'm curious what your perspective is on the safety position. They lose Jaron McPherson. They lose Ross Elder. Russ Yeast is now in the NFL, 7th-round draft pick for the Rams.
All starters.
Yeah, all starters, all guys that played significant snaps. TJ Smith, really, and the only guy that played a lot on the defense, and he has played a decent amount. Sincere Mason, very limited in his time. Another guy that was injured, but, sounds like he's ahead of the curve in the recovery process. And then they brought in a whole horde of guys. I mean, they definitely have the depth. Will these guys turn out to play playing well? Will they adapt to the system quickly enough? They have guys to choose from. Josh Hayes, a transfer from Virginia, originally from North Dakota State, solid football player. Kobe Savage, another junior college football player they brought into the fold. He was here for the spring. They like him a lot as well. Sean Robinson thought to be a safety. It sounds like he's going to play more of the Sam position at the linebacker. But they've got bodies at the safety position. Drake Cheatham. Now, we want to hesitate. Everyone's going to compare him to Reggie Stubblefield, right? Because same school, Prairie View A&M transfer, first team, all SWAC, really solid player. He produced there, and he produced in some of their bigger games against better competition in Texas A&M and Houston. Another veteran-type player. So, DY, I guess, what are your thoughts on the safety position, the secondary in general, and what you heard today around that?
K-State Online, if you're a subscriber, if you're not, you should be. But at K-State Online, we've been saying all season, or all off season, I should say, that the one spot that we don't know what the answers are going to be is the safety position. And then Chris Klieman kind of, I guess, reinforced that thought process that we've had, just because, they're replacing all three safeties. Just like, the offensive line. You're replacing all three interior starters. But at least you have Taylor Portier. So it's a little bit different. This is the question mark of the team. Definitely the defense. Just based on what people are saying, I tend to feel, I guess, cautiously optimistic is probably the way to, because it's a little bit of a blind faith, right? Because we haven't seen most of these guys play football at all. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Prairie View A&M. I don't know about you. So I'm going to say they probably got a good player in Drake Cheatham. Will he start? I have no idea. Josh Hayes, for them to move him away from corner where he was probably going to play quite a bit to safety tells me like he's going to be factored into the plans and they like what he's doing there. If they didn't, I think they would have just kept him at corner. So I feel good about that one. And I feel good about Kobe Savage. It felt like today he almost started to become a buzzworthy name for that defense. Someone said, he's one of the fastest players on the team. I think that was Adrian Martinez. Chris Klieman mentioned him as a guy that was just exceeding expectations. Exceeding expectations is how he was described throughout the spring. So I have some faith that they at least have a few answers, whether it's Kobe Savage and Josh Hayes. Now, a third one, maybe we need to find that part out. TJ Smith, sounds like Chris Klieman said that they found a role for him that he's really grown into, and it's J-Mac spot, Jerome McPherson at the strong safety role. So maybe he'll play some better football. He's played a lot of it. So, it's still, if you think about Josh Hayes, Drake Cheatham, Kobe Savage, and I'm probably missing a few. It's still got a lot of guys that played a lot of football.
Yeah. Well, and then another name that flashed today was brought up a couple times. I believe Deuce Vaughn also brought him up. BJ Payne, talented freshman, and you've mentioned him to us as well. That you've heard from some members of the staff that he's a true freshman.
I think he's another 22-mile-an-hour guy. Yeah,
super fast and also big, right? I mean, this is a big physical type safety. He gets off the bus and he definitely looks the part. I think he's 6'2", 6'3", over 200 pounds, running at over 22 miles per hour. Imagine that. It's a big time player. And you look at his recruiting profile. Now, I don't know how many offers were committable by the time he committed to Kansas State, but he had the likes of USC listed as an offer on his rivals profile and several other Power 5 programs. He chose Kansas State. Jordan Perry, we haven't heard as much about. He's another true freshman defensive back safety out of the state of Georgia. So they've got bodies there. They've also got youth in the secondary position, the safety. So it's a nice combination. It'll just be a matter of how quickly they can bring those guys up to speed because they are replacing a lot. I do think it helps that Julius Brents, Echo Boydo are back. You have a great pass rush. You've got an all Big 12 linebacker in Daniel Green, a veteran linebacker in Will Honas. So you got a lot of experience at the other spots that will enable them to maybe be a little more flexible there and be interchangeable and get these guys brought up to speed in the secondary position. Maybe one more thing we hit on before we call this a wrap. The common theme also today was you look at Kansas State, 6 all Big 12 first-team players. They lead the conference in all Big 12 first-team players, picked to finish 5th in the league. But we ask a lot of the players and coaches, is this the most talented team of Chris Klieman's tenure here? This is year 4. And the answer certainly seems to be yes. So there's a lot of high expectations for this football team.
Yeah, we got a yes from Wyatt Thompson too. I don't think it's really a question mark, but I think we discussed it on a podcast. Don't know if it's going to be released yet or not by the time you're listening to this one. But will it result in more than 8 wins? I think that's the question, because it's going to be a play here or there that really determines that. And guess what? You have your best team in quite a while, at least the most talented. But so there's a lot of other teams right now. That 1 through 8 is pretty thin, the margin there. So there is a lot of good teams in this league. I don't know if there's any great ones, unless Baylor proves us wrong, unless K-State proves us wrong, Oklahoma, Texas. But I think there's a lot of good teams, not great teams. I think, and people won't like hear it because they want to hear that KU is a bad team, but I'm not sure there's a bad team in the league.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think we've talked. It's probably the most open this league has been since Lincoln Riley was in it as the head coach, and now Brent Venables is at Oklahoma. Obviously, Oklahoma's a team. You look back, 6 straight years they were picked to win the Big 12 until this season. This is the first year dating all the way back through to 2014 is the last time you go back when Oklahoma wasn't picked to win the Big 12.
I just thought of something. Do you remember your research about Kansas State's all Big 12 first team?
Let's make this point, guys, because this was brought up on a radio station we were listening to, actually, and I decided while Derek was driving us here so kindly down to Arlington to do a little bit of research around this. So it is interesting that Kansas State is picked to finish 5th in the league, yet they lead the Big 12 with 6 all Big 12 selections, right?
And to be fair, I think me and you probably would.
Yeah,
we would go with 3rd.
Yeah,
I would go 4th.
Yeah, I think. And also, to be fair on this, is we don't know what the second team would look like because they didn't release a second team, all Big 12 team. And Kansas State has 6. They're more top heavy. They may not have more than maybe a couple guys on the second team. You know, if we tried to think through who those could potentially be.
Huggins.
Yeah, Eli Huggins certainly be an option at the nose tackle position. Echo Boydo. I think Nate Matlack would probably be more of an honorable mention guy because I just don't know if a lot of people know about him yet.
Not enough people know about him. Taylor Porty hasn't played enough football.
Yeah.
So that it might just be 2.
Yeah. And so when we did this research, we looked back to just find, when was the last team that led the Big 12 in selections wasn't picked to win the Big 12? Well, Oklahoma almost every year led the Big 12 in all Big 12 first team selections in the preseason poll voted by media representatives. And Oklahoma over the last 6 years has picked to win the league. Coincidentally, if you want to be the media is out to get us type guy, if you go back, the last time that Kansas State led the Big 12 and all Big 12 first team players was actually 2013. And Kansas State was picked in the preseason standings to finish 6th that year. Now, they weren't far off with that projection. Kansas State ended up winning the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl against Michigan. Kind of an up and down season, got to 8 wins. But K-State had 5 players picked to the all Big 12 first team that year in the preseason poll, and the next closest team had 4. So it's an interesting perspective that Kansas State has led it 2 different years with all Big 12 selections over the last 9 years, but both times were picked to finish middle of the pack to that lower tier. So glad you brought that up, Derek, so we could point that out to Kansas State fans because I think that is an interesting point as well. So, Derek, before we wrap up, anything else you want to add on what you heard down in Arlington?
Not really. I need a break.
Well, we appreciate Derek. He has sucked it up today. He's been battling allergies pretty bad and losing his voice from that. So we appreciate his support and all his efforts going around, helping us get audio, being there for the 3 mall pod and playing through the pain.
Jordan flu game.
Yeah, it's his Jordan flu game. But nobody worry. It wasn't actually the flu. This is an allergy situation for Derek. He has bad allergies, as he tells everybody. So, and we know this firsthand. So Derek sucked it up for us today. We're greatly appreciative of it. We miss John, like I said, but hopefully you guys enjoyed what we brought to you today. And we're going to have a lot more content for you through the next couple weeks as we air some of our different podcasts from Big 12 Media Days. We expect to produce 5 or 6 different podcasts of content for you. Looking forward to bringing that to you, bringing more content as we near closer to what should be an extremely exciting football season. So with that, we'll call this a wrap. We appreciate you again, all of our listeners, for your support. Thank you again for listening to another 3 Mall Pod.